I had great hair when I was younger. Nice, long, soft hair. The kind of hair that makes even the ladies jealous. My beautiful hair didn't last though. Genetics being what they are in my family, my hair was already thinning by my mid-20s. Things only got worse every year. I tried to hide my receding hairline by growing my hair a bit longer and pushing it to the front. But as the hair thinned and left the shape of a U on my forehead, it stopped being possible. I decided to shave my head when I turned 30. By the time I mustered up the courage to try and grow it back, it was already too late for the top of my head, and I was left with the monk hairdo. Now, I'm not sure when I decided to do something about the hair loss. It started with stupid things like sprays and lotion. I'd get suckered into trying anything new that hit the market, but of course, none of the products worked. It was only late one night that I found my solution. As usual, I fell asleep with the TV on, and when I woke up to pee, there was an infomercial advertising a new product called Folli-Cool. They were showing an interview of some guy, Brandon I think his name was, who'd apparently been using it for a few months. He had the most beautiful head of hair I'd ever seen in my entire life. 2 months ago, I was balding, he said, as the screen showed a picture of his bald head. But thanks to Folli-Cool, I now have the confidence I need to talk to women again. Bye-bye embarrassing comb-over. Goodbye hat. No more standing in front of the mirror and crying. With Folli-Cool, you'll have your very own swoosh in no time. He ran his hands through his soft bangs, which formed a swooshing wave that cascaded to the left side of his head. I wanted it. I wanted that swoosh. I picked up the phone, dug around for my credit card, and ordered Folli-Cool without a second thought. And by God did I regret it. Folli-Cool was on my doorstep a few weeks later. I grabbed the box, headed upstairs, barely scanned the instructions, and applied the lotion feverishly over my waxy head. Then, I waited. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, nothing. I applied more. Nothing. I tried again. Not a goddamn follicle. Not even one. Not even a hint of something growing beneath the surface. I'd nearly emptied the bottle already and had nothing to show for it. I emptied what was left in the bottle and tossed it in the trash bin. The itching started a few days after that. I was at my desk at work and I felt an intense itch behind my ear. I scratched it, but it wasn't enough. I scratched harder and harder, but I just couldn't satisfy the craving. I could feel flakes of skin peeling off, but I couldn't stop myself. It was infuriating. It was like someone was tickling me inside of my scalp. I kept scratching until I'd realized I'd drawn blood, and then I stopped. I went to the doctor that afternoon, and he told me I had a rash. Probably an allergic reaction to something, he told me. I knew what the culprit was. Folli-Cool. I'd probably applied too much, and now my skin was irritated. He gave me some ointment, and that was that. I went home that night, still itchy, but feeling a little bit better. The next morning, I felt a prickling in my gums. I pulled my mouth open, but everything looked fine, so I ignored it and went on with my day. That evening, after supper, I was cleaning my teeth with a toothpick when I found a piece of food that just wouldn't dislodge. It was thin, like a string of celery, but it was more persistent. I headed to the bathroom and tried to floss it out, but I could still feel it when I ran my tongue over the gap between my teeth. I leaned in close to the mirror and looked closely. It was a hair! How had it gotten in there? I grabbed it and tugged, but my fingers kept slipping off. I rummaged through my drawers until I found a pair of tweezers. A little squeeze, a little tug, and suddenly, ow! I felt it come out. I felt a pull in my gum as I yanked the hair from my mouth. What was I supposed to think? I just rationalized it away. I told myself it was probably one of Barbara's, a colleague of mine with long flowing blonde locks, hair. Maybe it got in my food somehow. Maybe I'd chewed on that food so intensely that the hair had gone up the gap and under my gums. Damned if I knew. Come morning, my theory was quickly disproven. I woke up with little filaments between my teeth. They were barely noticeable since they were light-colored, but I could feel them on my tongue. I felt like I'd gone to town on a whole head of celery, like my teeth had raked up and down their stalks for the explicit purpose of getting as much trapped between them as humanly possible. But see, if that had been the case, then I wouldn't have been able to follow each and every little hair all the way up to my gums. They weren't just coming out of my gums, they were growing out of them. In a panic, I plucked the hairs out one by one, wincing in pain as they separated from my gums. Some of them were harder to pull than others. Some of them were so ingrained in my gums that pulling them caused bleeding, and that was enough to get me to call my doctor again. Unfortunately, he was fully booked. He didn't seem to think it was much of an emergency, so he only penciled me in for next week. I'm not sure I'll make it to next week. The hairs kept growing out of my gums all day. I could feel them poking through like saplings out of the ground after a long winter. And the itching was back. It was everywhere. My head, my arms, my legs. I tried using the ointment the doctor had prescribed, but it wasn't helping anymore, and now I know why. When you've got an itch, you typically scratch it, right? Well, I scratched my arm earlier, but I couldn't stop myself. The itching was just maddening. I just kept going and going until I felt moisture on my fingers. When I looked down, I saw a single hair poking out of my bloody arm. "God damn it!" I yelled. I think by now, I understood what was happening. Folli-Cool had done its job. I pulled on the hair and my stomach twisted as I felt it just under the surface of my skin. It didn't hurt, surprisingly enough, but it wasn't pleasant either. I pulled and pulled and pulled. You know when you're eating spaghetti and you come across a noodle that you just can't find the end of? You just keep slurping it up, hoping you'll find the end, but it's some kind of mutant noodle that just won't give up? This little hair was that damn noodle. I pulled it until it reached about 2 feet in length, and then it got stuck. Wiggled it around, but it wouldn't budge. I circled it around my hand 3 times, took a deep breath, and yanked as hard as I could. Fuck me. Sideways, a knot of hair came out with the rest of the follicle. A knot so big I could have formed 2 of Brandon's fabulous hair swooshes. I wanted my hair back. I wanted a beautiful swoosh like Brandon's. I got what I asked for. The problem is, it's all ingrown. And it's still growing.